Secretary of State Antony Blinken declared on Tuesday, March 30, that the United States will voice out about human rights everywhere, including in allies and at home. Presenting the State Department's first human rights report under President Joe Biden, the new top US diplomat took masked digs at Trump's administration. Blinken told reporters, "Some have argued that it's not worth it for the US to speak up forcefully for human rights, or that we should highlight abuse only in select countries and only in a way that directly advances our national interests." He noted that standing up for human rights everywhere is in America's interests, and the Biden-Harris administration will stand against human rights abuses wherever they occur, regardless of whether the perpetrators are adversaries or partners. Blinken instructed the return of assessments in the annual report on countries' records on access to reproductive health removed under the anti-abortion Trump administration. In another shift in tone from Trump, Blinken said the United States acknowledged its own challenges, including systematic racism.
And in fact, that's exactly what separates our democracy from autocracies. Our ability and willingness to confront our own shortcomings out in the open, to pursue that more perfect union.
The report reckoned that more than 1 million Uyghurs and other members of mostly Muslim communities had been rounded up in internment camps in the western region of Xinjiang. Another 2 million are subjected to re-education training each day. He said the Biden administration highlighted coordination with allies, pointing to recent joint efforts over Xinjiang, China's clampdown in Hong Kong, and Russia's suspected poisoning of dissident Alexei Navalny. Blinken also expressed alarm over the Myanmar military's fatal clampdown on pro-democracy protesters, attacks on civilians in Syria, and a campaign in Ethiopia's Tigray that he has previously called ethnic cleansing. The report did not spare established allies. It pointed to claims of unlawful killings and torture in Saudi Arabia and Egypt, quoting human rights groups that said Egypt is holding between 20,000 and 60,000 people, predominantly due to their political beliefs. Biden earlier declassified US intelligence that found that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the ghastly murder of US-based writer Jamal Khashoggi. While the human rights report remained intact under Trump, the previous administration argued that rights were of lesser importance than other concerns. Allies such as Saudi Arabia, the major oil producer and purchaser of US weapons that backed Trump's aggressive position against Iran, were also heavily dissected in the report. The latest report also described occurrences in India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a close US ally. It quoted non-governmental groups as pointing to the use of India of torture, mistreatment and arbitrary detention to obtain forced or false confessions, and quoted journalists as assessing that press freedom declined, including through physical provocation of journalists, pressure on owners and trivial lawsuits. SpaceX chief Elon Musk confirmed on Twitter Tuesday that the latest prototype of the company's Starship rocket series had crashed, and in a lighter vein said, "At least the crater is in the right place." SpaceX logged another failed landing for its futuristic bullet-shaped Starship as the prototype Mars rocket broke apart right before touchdown. A camera on the rocket stopped 6 minutes into the test flight, and heavy fog in South Texas shrouded visions of the shattered rocket. Debris from the spacecraft was found strewn 5 miles away from its landing site. The rocket SN-11 launched from the company's South Texas facility around 1300 GMT. It began its ascent to 10 kilometers and started experiencing video glitches. "We lost the clock at T plus 5 minutes 49 seconds, said announcer John Insprucker, meaning the amount of time passed after liftoff. Musk said something significant occurred just after the engine firings for landing. "We should know what it was once we can examine the bits later today." He also noted that one of the 3 engines encountered problems during the ascent. This was the 4th full-scale stainless steel model to take off to an altitude of more than 6 miles since December. The previous 3 exploded at touchdown or shortly afterward. The prototype is 164 feet tall. SpaceX plans to use Starship to send astronauts and cargo to the Moon and eventually Mars. Earlier this month, Musk said that SpaceX will be landing Starships on Mars well before 2030. SN8 and SN9, which launched in December and February respectively, crash-landed and exploded, while SN10 successfully landed then blew up a few minutes later during its test on March 3rd. Despite the botches, analysts said that SpaceX is amassing valuable data that will assist in hastening its development timeline. Eventually, SpaceX plans to merge the Starship spaceship with a super heavy rocket, generating a fully reusable system. The Starship was one in a series of prototypes for the heavy lift rocket being developed by Musk's private space company to ferry humans and 100 tons of cargo on future missions to the Moon and Mars. A first orbital Starship flight is planned for the end of the year. Musk, who also heads the electric car maker Tesla Inc., said he intends to fly Japanese billionaire Yusaku Masawa around the Moon in the Starship in 2023. Despite the predicaments surrounding failed rocket tests, Musk has named the launch and landing area at the southeastern tip of Texas near the Mexico border Starbase. He urged people to move to the area because he's planning to hire several thousand people over the next couple of years, including engineers, technicians, builders and general workers. He's also donating millions to the local school district and nearby city of Brownsville. A kid unknowingly caused confusion by posting an inscrutable tweet to the account of the US Strategic Command. The gibberish message that read, "IGMI XZ caused confusion as some jokingly commented that might be a US nuclear launch code or that the Pentagon had been hacked, and some even thought it was a signal to political conspiracies. The US Strategic Command is the agency that manages and safeguards America's powerful nuclear weapons force. Stratcom told reporter Michael Thalen of the Daily Dot that the tweet was not a secret message, and Stratcom's social media editor, who was working from home, momentarily left the command's Twitter account open and unattended. Stratcom official Kendall Cooper said to Thalen that the command's Twitter manager, while in a tallywork status, momentarily left the command's Twitter account open and unattended. His very young child took advantage of the situation and started playing with the keys and, unfortunately and unknowingly, posted the tweet. Absolutely nothing nefarious occurred. That is no hacking of our Twitter account. Stratcom tweeted to disregard the previous tweet, and 30 minutes later, both the messages were deleted. It is not the first time that Stratcom experienced trouble on social media. In December 2018, referring to the Times Square New Year's Eve ball drop in New York, it joked on Twitter about it being prepared to drop something much bigger, with a video of a B-2 stealth bomber dropping 2 bombs to the beat of pulsing music. Hours later, it deleted that tweet and apologised that it was in poor taste.